Cheryl!
Now on, if anyone makes fun of me, I'll kill him! Just like
Hey, we're finally back. So I did have an intro written up for this, but I'm just gonna do this instead and just kind of give you a quick update. So it's been a while since I made a video, and fucking things breaking, other things breaking, everything be breaking, alright? But good news, replaced, we're all set, we got lots of videos in the background, I'm fucking ready to go. So today's topic, the evil within. Now I had something with Resident Evil 4, but I guess the main point here is that I think it's a pretty damn good game, and I think it improves upon a lot Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 in most aspects. So I don't understand why it gets so much shit, at least when it first came out, maybe not as much now. Shinji Mikami, the man who started my weird obsession with survival horror, and his new studio Tango Gameworks released The Evil Within on October 14th, 2014 on every fucking console, called Psycho Break in Japan, which, big mistake on your part there, Tango. That's a 10 times better name, just saying. Psycho Break. And you have to say it like that, it's just how it works. Touted to be the game that would return survival horror to its roots that, in the end, honestly, was one of the few games that was the closest thing to a survival horror game we've gotten in a long time.
What about Amnesia?
What about Alien Isolation?
Did you even play Five Nights at Freddy's? Outlast was the scariest game ever made, you fucking douche.
I hear you cry, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'll direct you to this video. As for Alien Isolation, I have yet to play a lot of it, but it seems really promising. See, at first I didn't think the term survival horror really fit this game, and in some aspects it doesn't, but really it's a step in the right direction, albeit a tiny one. I'd say one of their biggest problems right off the bat was their first 10-minute E3 gameplay trailer. It looked cool. It started off with you in the basement, and then suddenly it ends on you going to the Apocalypse City. It's just like, you should have had a better way of going about it. Even I didn't know what to make of it. I saw that, I was just like, okay. Marketing blunder aside, let's focus on the game. Right away, the game is like Resident Evil 6 and Silent Hill had a love child. With the gameplay of 6, well, 4, 5, and 6, and with the storytelling of the Silent Hill games, it's really a setup hard not to love. So, it controls just like Resident Evil 6, but a little better, mainly due to the fact I don't have to dick around with a cover system whilst being fired at by a spider. God, so dumb. Seriously though, the controls are pretty much a carbon copy of Resident Evil 6 with a few differences, but the gameplay complements it so much better than in that game. With the enemy behaviors much like Resident Evil 4, more melee-centric enemy attacks and a lot less submachine gun hellfire. The weapon upgrade system is also returned from Resident Evil 4 in all its glory. Still love maxing out weapons like a champ, but it feels more token than anything else, like most other upgrade systems. It's got a crossbow, so that kicks ass. The newest game mechanics are some light stealth options, a stamina system that is more annoying than anything else. No fucking human is this out of shape where they have the lung capacity to take 20 fast fucking steps. This motherfucker can use his core to lift his torso to his legs. I get what they were trying to do, but I found it just more annoying than anything else. The stealth isn't great, but not unserviceable. The enemy detection can be dodgy at some points, but is a valid option at other times, especially since it really does try to bring back survival horror somewhat. So here's where the game does try to be a survival horror game. Ammo is scarce as hell, and enemies are bullet sponges. It almost invokes the feeling of a Resident Evil game. It's a lot like survival horror in the modern day. With ammo being such a scarce resource, the game forces you to never miss a shot or use your cunning to fuck the monsters up. With stealth and evasion as options to traverse the obstacles that lie ahead, you would think they might have some worth, right? Well, here's where they kinda goof. a lot of the times it's still not more viable than direct combat, so why bother with the slow and dodgy stealth system? You don't? Okay, you do, but only on occasions. On the other hand, the burning option is super viable and helps during combat. Did I not mention this other new mechanic of burning bodies? This new mechanic allows you to burn bodies, oil puddles, and bales of hay to either kill an enemy instantly or make sure that bastard is dead. Never have I seen anything like this in a game by the same guy. The game is actually full of Resident Evil references that are pretty great.
Shit, back here again.
Here's where I think people often overlook the power of burning shit. Just like in that non-referenced game, if you time your match just right, you can get a twofer, or even better, a three-way. Or you can just lead them into burning bales of hay, or just get fed up with their shit and kick it at them. Yeah, take that, you cocksucker. Matches are also limited, but much less so than ammo, and are much harder to actually use to actually kill in the middle of a combat. So, it's still not optimal, but it is pretty effective. Much like a survival horror game, the combat is de-emphasized, except when it isn't. The game does have moments where you're balls to the walls fighting groups of enemies. The game does have a bit of an identity crisis where it has moments where it does feel like it's trying to go for the survival horror thing, but then it's just like, oh my god, that's fucking right! We can blow dudes up! We can cut people's heads off with chainsaws! You feel the hardships. You feel. They're there. Speaking of the horror aspect of the game, it's really not scary. It has moments where it's kind of supposed to be like, oh, this is kind of scary. But most of it is just so in your face and over the top, it's just, no scares. Despite telling its story similarly to Silent Hill, it's missing the subtleties and nuances that set it apart from true horror masterpieces. Horror is a super subjective aspect, so to each his own whether they consider anything scary, but this game isn't scary at all. The atmosphere is here, fully intact though. Even with all the crazy amount of different areas, it's done well each time. The lighting and overall design paints a really enveloping atmosphere. The lighting looks fucking great in this game. It's really impressive how good it looked. Overall, the game looks pretty good with extremely detailed character models and well-designed environments. It does suffer from It Tech 5's weird mega textures that look poor up close but good from a distance, and there is some texture pop in. Visually speaking, it looks damn good. As for the enemy design, it leaves a bit to be desired. Now the game as a whole looks pretty damn good, but the enemy design is kind of there are some good ones, but as a whole, they're alright. I mean, they're not great, they're not bad, they're fine. Except the fucking stupid invisible one. None of them are bad per se, but kind of uninspired really. They're miles better than anything in Resident Evil 6, but that's not saying a whole lot. The zombies look pretty damn cool. Laura is just your standard spooky lady with long black hair. The Keeper is an obvious homage of sorts to Pyramid Head, and it's kind of okay. Dr. Salvador makes his return with his amazing chainsaw, and some bosses that are kind of cool to look at, but I don't know. They're not very impressive mostly, and feel borrowed from Resident Evil. The sounds they make are just way too formal to make them scary. I know exactly what the sound is when I hear it. Nothing just sounds weird as fuck to the point where it's horrifying, and I don't know what is making the sound. It's just some dude making a vocal fry at me. Now as for the story, it's a bit confusing to get your first time through, but it's actually much better than a lot of people think. Now the story isn't anything to jerk off to, but it does its job. I'd say the biggest problem is the characters. That's just so starchy. That's so starchy. And I mean, the details aren't exactly spoon-fed to you. It's kind of given to you in a very Silent Hill-esque way where it's very vague. So you kind of have that going, which was really cool when I first played it. But the DLC is kind of needed to fully understand it. At least I think it needs to be there, because it's like some parts just were too confusing, and the DLC kind of brings it all into a nice circle, and you kind of get a much bigger picture. I'll go more detail on those later, but for now, I'll just give you a quick overview on it. So without making this part too long, the game starts off with our main character Sebastian Castellanos, his longtime partner Joseph, who is played by the most immersion-breaking motherfucker Yuri Lowenthal, and a rookie named Kidman, who is voiced by Deborah Morgan. She does a pretty good job, especially this line.
Whoa, what the fuck is that?
That's exactly how I'd probably say that. They're on their way back from a case when suddenly they gotta go do other shit. The nearby hospital reported a bunch of dead people, so now they gotta go check it out. Once they arrive, of course, it goes straight to hell, and you're transported to some spooky basement because this guy here looked at you funny. Becoming separated from his team, Seb is alone to explore these extremely varied areas. Your main goal is revealed to break free from this STEM machine that is a combination of The Cell and Silent Hill 2. This machine harnesses everyone's subconscious to build this nightmare world. So in order to break free, you have to use Leslie to get out. But oh no, if he comes, so does the main bad guy. That is like the shortest way to condense this into a palatable form. At the end, Leslie gets a bit too warm and melts, and then Ruben becomes a big, thing with teeth. Seb fucks him up, and he awakens hearing Kidman say,
Leave that one. And those two. They're not going anywhere. No one can.
He then stumbles away and you're left with a confusing ending. Whose nightmare are we in? Are we in? So after beating the game, you get some statistics on how shitty you did, you get New Game Plus, unlock a few other things. The game is super replayable like Resident Evil 4. The DLC is top notch. I rarely buy DLC and I can confidently say it's super awesome. So until we get to the plot analysis, let's talk about the ports. Mainly the PC port. So the game actually managed to make it to the PS3, 360, Xbox One, PS4, PC, and the Wii U! Could you imagine? Fortunately, from what I've read, there isn't much different in terms of content across the board, thankfully. The two last-gen ports are really unimpressive to look at, running at a sub 720p, including the crop factor, but I do believe it's fully intact more or less. Jumping forward to the two current consoles, they both look pretty damn good. The Xbone runs at a smaller resolution, but is pretty hard to notice most of the time. Both run about 30 frames a second and recently have been given the option to disable the letterboxing. Quick note about that. Now personally, I love how it made the game look and feel. It was super claustrophobic and made it much more cinematic, but the fact that it was forced upon us was just a bad move on their part. Even enjoying as much as I did, I still don't play with it on mostly. Why would I? When it comes to a game, playability is your main factor. Between these two, you can't really go wrong and both are pretty good. As for the PC port, it's kind of a fucking disaster. I didn't buy the PC port until recently this year, so I didn't have the misfortune of dealing with its terrible launch. Even with the patch, the game is still poorly optimized. I'm running a damn solid setup, but the game still has problems with a fixed 60 frames a second at a good chunk of areas. The game looks good, but fuck, not this good. Other than that, it's still a good version, and if you really hate 30 frames a second, then the PC version is for you. The bottom line is, I'd say the PC is your best bet, because I mean, it's 60 frames a second. So is the game bad? Hell no, but it's not amazing either. As much as Mikami gripes about survival horror being what it is now, he didn't really do too much to bring it back to its former glory. It reminds me a lot of the Resident Evil 3.5 E3 trailer, the mishmash of paranormal horror and action elements that surprisingly makes a really good game. If you've played Resident Evil 4, 5, or 6 and you liked them, then this game should feel familiar and fun. Now, I'm hoping to see more from Tango Gameworks because I was really impressed with this game. I thought it was better than Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. Not combined, but I mean, as a whole, I think it was more fun and enjoyable to play. And that's coming from a guy that has played Resident Evil 4, I am dead fucking serious, probably played and beaten over 20 times. So, there's that. But until next time, which should be relatively soon, we get stuck on some spooky spaceship planet a survival horror game. A real survival horror game!
What?
I don't know why I keep saying action. Oh, it's so hot. Just turned on every female viewer in the audience. Looking at you. Or even some of the male. I'm a famous YouTuber, what can I say? Watch my videos.